is finally, officially over. Well, not completely officially, because they haven't completely signed off on the legislation. But anyway, it's over. Wall Street to the street, elbows everywhere. Yes, the GOP has been defeated. We will get funding of the government back, and the government will be reopened, of course, until January, and the debt ceiling will be lifted until February, and then we'll go through all this drama again, unless, of course, at some point President Obama finally gives in. It's not really giving in. He wants to do it anyway and does a grand bargain, cuts Social Security and Medicare. That's what this is about. It's not about Obamacare. They knew they never had a chance. In fact, the head of the Heritage Action Fund, the guys who pushed them hardest on this, came out today and said, oh, yeah, Obamacare. I mean, obviously, we can't touch that until 2017. Then why in the world did you do all this? Because it was never about that. It was so they can cut your Social Security and Medicare. That's a long con, and that's coming next. But for the moment being, yes, politically they are vanquished. Now, the last throws of the Republicans went like this. The House said, hey, Senate, we got this, all right? We're going to put together a proposal here. John Boehner said, step aside, all right? And they had this great plan, and Representative John Fleming was stupid enough to share it with us, Republican of Louisiana. He said, we want to make a deal that they can't refuse, and we're running out of time. Timing is very important here. This is him talking yesterday. They're going to be more motivated to take this up. Otherwise, they missed the Thursday deadline, saying like, we got this great plan. We run out the clock. And at the end, the House passes this really conservative bill, and then goes to the Senate and goes, you got to lift the debt ceiling, so you're going to have to say yes. And here's what happened. They couldn't even get it passed in the House. Even among the Republicans. They went to go argue among themselves, and this is an awesome moment, last night. And the moderate Republicans, such as they are, say, hey, come on, let's go. We got to do a clean continuing resolution. We got to open this thing back up. Are you guys insane? The markets are going to melt, okay? You can't do this. So then you have the conservative Republicans, about 20 of them that are holdouts, the guys who, a lot of whom went to dinner with Ted Cruz the other night, saying, oh, no. This legislation that is more conservative than the one in the Senate, not good enough. We want more. We want to defund Obamacare. And Boehner was like, oh, come on, dude. I don't know if I could tell you this clear enough. We lost. There's no defunding Obamacare. There's no getting what you want. We lost. But no, they couldn't come to an agreement. So they had to surrender and say, all right, the Senate, you do it. And the Senate version, obviously not as conservative. The Senate run by Democrats. And the Senate Republicans, Mitch McConnell, John McCain, et cetera, have already said, we lost. We're going to give the Democrats pretty much what they want. And there's a couple of small details about, just minutia to do a tiny bit of face saving. But the bottom line is it's clean. They wind up opening the government back up. They lift the debt ceiling. And then they have a commission that will consider the grand bargain later and kick it down the road. But overall, the Democrats win. And the House couldn't even get together to pass anything at the end. And then you started seeing panic tweets like this one. Email from a Republican lawmaker. Time to roll over. I love that one. Jonathan Strong hears, quote, it's all over. We'll take the Senate deal. That's a GOP aide. When I started seeing those roll in, I was like, all right, well, now we're having fun. Okay. And then Representative Jamie Herrera Beutler, who is one of the so-called moderates, came out and said, look, I try to give the Republican leadership as much time as I could so they could have a leverage to make a better deal. It turns out they're never going to make a better deal. The leverage was wasted. This whole thing was a fool's errand. So she says, quote, it's time for my colleagues to face reality. They say it's over. Then you go to the editorial boards, and they have ravaged the Republicans here. But the most interesting one is the Wall Street Journal, because the Wall Street Journal is conservative. Their editorial board is massively conservative. And listen to what they say about how the Republicans played this. Quote, the conservatives thus undermined whatever small leverage the House GOP had left when they were obstinate in the situation I just explained, right? Without a united majority of 218 votes, Republicans might as well hand the Speaker's gavel to Senate Democratic leader Harry Reid. What in the world were you doing? What were you thinking? You've lost. And then they continue. This is the quality of thinking, or lack thereof, that has afflicted many GOP conservatives from the beginning of this budget showdown. They picked a goal they couldn't achieve in trying to defund Obamacare from one house of Congress, and then they picked a means they couldn't sustain politically by pursuing a long government shutdown and threatening to blow through the debt limit. And then finally they conclude by saying, Republicans can best help their cause now by getting this over with and moving on to fight more intelligently another day. Damn. So then the rest of the editorial boards rolled up their sleeves and went to work, particularly on John Boehner, calling this, according to Politico, a disaster. And then the Washington Post called it a humiliating failure. I'm rather enjoying this. Then we go to NBC's Peter Alexander, and he says, after a shutdown that lasted 16 days, a shutdown led by House Republicans, by the end of today, those Republicans may leave with little to nothing to show for it. That's fairly obvious. And then ABC's John Carl. House Republicans are the clear losers. They push to the brink and have nothing to show for it. I don't believe that Jonathan Karl in his reporting actually said losers, but he should have said it that way because Boehner has been reamed in every direction. He's actually taking it double-donger style. I'll tell you why. Because you got the conservatives saying, oh, you caved at the end. I can't believe this. You know, you're going to use the Democrats to get enough votes because the Republicans aren't going to vote for this, right? The conservatives, they're never, ever, ever, ever going to vote for it. So Boehner's going to put it up at the end. Some few Republicans vote for it, along with the Democrats, to open the government back up. And they'll say, oh, Boehner caved. But, dude, how long did you want him to go? I mean, he slit one wrist and one artery. Did you want both arteries and both wrists? But they're not good enough. Boehner's not conservative enough. Bring out the double donger. Okay. On the other end, you have the mainstream saying, Boehner, how stupid were you that you started this whole mess without knowing how to end it? Now, they're right about that, right? But Boehner was forced in that position because if he didn't do that, then he would have lost the speakership. And I don't know if you know this, but politicians kind of care about power. So, damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. And in this case, he was damned in both ways. So it leads to a gigantic failure on the part of Boehner and the Republican Party, but driven there by the Tea Party Republicans, to be fair. Now, people who told you all about it all along was somebody like Peter King. Pete King said, it was hard for them to get the votes anyway. And then when Heritage came out, that killed it. You see, that's a really interesting part of this dynamic. Because as they're discussing it last night within the House Republican caucus, Heritage Action Group, the same guys who now say, oh, Obamacare, we were never going to defund that. Are you crazy? We'd have to wait until 2017 when we actually won a presidential election. Well, why didn't you say that from day one, you schmucks? Anyway, so they put out a letter saying, no, the last proposal from the House, not good enough. And so Peter Welsh understandably asks, and he's a Democrat from Vermont, who's calling the shots here? Ted Cruz, Heritage Action? Who knows, but it sure isn't John Boehner. They had a plan and they withdrew the plan right after Heritage Action denounced the plan. Well, he's absolutely right about that. And of course John Boehner isn't calling the shots. Heritage Action is. Now why? Why are they calling the shots? Because they represent the guys with all the money. John Boehner isn't the deciding factor here. John Boehner is a paid actor, and he gets his notes from the director. And the director in this case, well, if you trace it all the way back, it's not as simple as just saying it's the Koch brothers, but they're a large, large part of this. They put $200 million into the effort to defund Obamacare, push the government to the brink, shut it down, etc. But overall, them combined with multinational corporations, they're the actual actors in this play. And, you know, actor meaning a person who takes action, right? As opposed to an actor like John Boehner who's like, oh, what's my lines? What am I supposed to say? Yeah, goddamn the debt ceiling, I'm not going to raise it. Oh, I'm supposed to raise it now? Okay, yes, I raise it. Okay, he has no decisive role to play here. That's why Heritage Action is so important. And then we go back to Peter King. He says, quote, this party is going nuts. And not in the right kind of way. It's not like he threw a banger and be like, dude, this thing is nuts. It's awesome. I don't think he means it that way. So many people I run into who are normal people, and I hate to use that term. Republicans generally hate to use that term. They just can't understand what's going on. And he continues, on this one, they can't even see both sides. They just think Republicans are crazy. That's it. They see no justification for any of this. And then finally he adds, even if this bill passed tonight, whether he's referring to the House bill that I was telling you about earlier, what would it have done after shutting down the government for 2.5 weeks, laying off 800,000 people, all the damage we caused, all we wound up in the end doing was taking away health insurance from congressional employees. That was part of the package. That's it. That's what you go to war for? That's what we shut down the United States government for? Well, that's what you did, and it was monumentally stupid, and it has hurt the Republican brand tremendously. Now, there's a very good argument to make that they still win on policy grounds because they shifted the debate so far to the right. But when it comes to politics, they have really damaged themselves. I think that this is a bit of a decisive moment. Not decisive in that it ends history here or anything like that, but decisive in the sense that this sets the tone for how people think of Republicans. And I think that it could have wide-ranging ramifications, not just for the next election in 2014, but beyond. I think going forward, the American people, when they think of the Republican Party, they think, oh, those are the extremists. Those are the extreme guys they're always huffing and puffing and they want their way and they shut the government down. They're like crybabies. They're extreme. And in order to get rid of that brand that has now been established, it's going to take a lot of doing, probably a lot of that Koch brothers money. But right now, the Koch brothers money led them off a cliff and destroyed the brand to begin with. So, GOP, well played. Okay, like, hey, anybody got an elbow? Yeah? Oh, you do? Can you drop it off? Oh, there it is. 160 long.